Hello my dear friends, you're on the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 16th of December. Today we have some updates, so let's start. And first we're going to start with the Russian sources map. As you can see, there are a lot of icons, fire arc icons all over the Ukraine. And as you can see, this morning the Russians made another attack, another massive rocket attack all over the territory of Ukraine. And mainly the Russians were targeting the energy facilities, and as a result of that attack, as you know, by this evening, by 4 p.m. of local time, the Russians stopped attacking this area. If we're talking about the Ukrainians, they reported that there are several air carriers in the sky, that a few air carriers were picked up in the territory of Belarus. Some air carriers were picked up, raised in the territory of Russian Federation. So maybe by the end of this evening, the Russians will make another wave of rocket attack. But for now, at let's say by 4 p.m. of local time, there were no more attacks from the Russian side. But the attacks that we saw dealt a lot of damage, and the Ukrainian authorities reported that more than 50% of energy system of Ukraine has been shut down by those attacks. And the Russians attacked the towns in the west of Ukraine like Ternopil, Khmelnytsky, Zhytomyr, like Korostyn, Kiev, like Poltava, Kharkov, Kryvyi Rog, Dnepr, Krapivnitsky, Nikolaev, Odessa. The Ukrainian military authorities reported that the Russians launched around 60 rockets, and that Ukrainians managed to shut down more than, I don't know, around 40 or 45 rockets, or 41 rockets. So according to the Ukrainian authorities, just 19 rockets or something like this to reach the targets. But as a result of that, almost entire Ukraine was shut down from electricity, and there are no energy facility are no longer working in this area. Furthermore, the Russians reported that as a result of this attack, the Ukrainians were forced to shut down the South Ukrainian nuclear power plant. So this power plant, the Ukrainians were forced to shut down for many reasons, and just to be on the safe side. Furthermore, the Ukrainians reported that they were forced to shut down few blocks of nuclear power plant in Rovno and in Vinnytsia. If we're talking about Dnipro, there is another important power plant in this area, Dnipro power plant, and the Russians, one of the biggest power plant in Europe, and the Ukrainians were forced, the Russians dealt a lot of damage, and they were forced to shut down this power plant as well. We can say that there are few differences between the waves of attack that we saw today and the previous waves, and there are at least two I found out. And the first one is that the previous attack, if you remember, the Russians made on the 5th of December, so 10 days ago. And the thing is that by the time the Russians usually attacks the Ukrainians like every 12 weeks or 10 days. And the thing is that if we take a look at the previous attacks, we can see that the Ukrainians were able to restore their energy facilities from one attack to another. So by the previous attack the Russians made on the 5th of December, so we can say that by the 5th of December the Ukrainians were able to restore the energy structure, energy facility of Ukraine from the previous attack that took place in November. So they managed to restore the situation. But if we're talking about today's attack on the 16th of December, we can say that it's a fact. It's not like something that we can understand or analyze. It's a fact that we can find from Ukrainian authorities, from Ukrainian updates and so on, that Ukrainians couldn't restore the energy facility by today. So that means that it's some kind of new point. We can start counting these days and this special operation. As you can see, that starting from today, the Ukrainians don't have enough of time between rocket attacks to restore their economy, to restore their energy facilities and so on. And every single further attack will increase this let's say, this lack or this distance or between like the real system and the situation that they have right now. So this is very important. And the second thing that I mentioned during today is that if we're talking about the Ukrainian official position, they're saying that they managed to shut down more than 80%. But if you saw videos, I believe I saw a lot of videos and pictures, I had an opinion that the Ukrainians managed to shut down something around 20 or 30% of the rockets. And to tell the truth, I had a feeling that there are no air defense system in Ukraine at all. So it's like a big hole, and the Russians managed to send everything they want through this big hole. So situation is critical, and we see that Ukrainians start collapsing slowly, but it starts, and I believe that in the next 10 days the Russians will do another attack. And by the time, I'm not sure if Ukrainians will be able to restore at least 50 or 30% of the damage they had during the day. Another important updates are coming from the territory of Belarus. As you know, we discussed many times about possible operation of offensive operation from the territory of Belarus. We discussed a lot about this. And today we got updates that on the 19th of December there's going to be a very big meeting in Minsk. This is the capital of Belarus. The president of Russian Federation, Putin, are planning to visit Belarus and to visit the president of Belarus, Lukashenko, and they're planning to make some kind of negotiation. Nobody knows what exactly they're planning to discuss. During previous these days, we got some words from president of Belarus. He was talking about the price for gas, and he was saying that because that fact that we are like Belarus and we're helping Russia so much, and we are trying to create some kind of union between these two countries, so that's why the president of Belarus requested or said that he wants to have the price for gas at the same level as, let's say, in Smolensk. This is the region of Russian Federation. It's like bordered region with Belarus and Russian Federation. The price for 1,000 cube meters of gas in Smolensk is around $80, and the Belarus are paying around $160, $140. So that's why the president of Belarus wants to reduce the price because of a lot of favors he does for Russian Federation and for Putin. So a lot of sources were saying that this is exactly that these presidents want to discuss. But the thing is that if the president of Belarus wants to have a lower price for gas, in this case, it's more obvious that he should go to the territory or to Moscow to ask this. But today we got another update that on the meeting on the 19th of December, it will be not just a meeting between the president of Belarus and president of Russian Federation. There are going to be two more persons. They're going to be the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation, Shoigu, and the Minister of Defense of Belarus. So it will be like four persons, and they will discuss something. And of course, this update about the fact that two Ministers of Defense are going to take part in this meeting, it's like it's not just says very loudly that these guys are planning to discuss military operation in Ukraine or something like this, or something that connected with military situation. And maybe this is the price that Russia should pay to Belarus for this union and for these things that Belarus will join this special operation, and price for this is low cost for resources that Belarus can get from Russia, like oil, like gas, and many other things. So maybe this is the part of negotiation. Anyway, we'll see, because as you know, the head of Ukrainian military headquarters reported that in January or from January till March, the Ukrainians expect at least a big offensive operation from the Russian side. For now, they don't know exactly which direction the Russians are planning to choose, so that's why they don't know exactly where they need to concentrate their forces. But anyway, sooner or later, today the 16th of December, so anyway, if the Russians are planning to attack the Ukraine from, let's say, Sumy, Chernigov, or the territory of Belarus, they need to deploy forces there. And anyway, we're going to see this, everybody will see this, and the Ukrainians will be forced to take some forces and to redeploy their army somewhere in the north, or at any other place, maybe in Zaporozhye and so on. If we are talking about the front lines today, we got some updates. If we are talking about Kupiansk-Liman front line, there are the same stories, the same picture. The Ukrainians and the Russians have very heavy clashes along the front line, somewhere in the middle line, and as a result of those clashes, the Ukrainian lost around 70 soldiers and something around 10 armored vehicles. Furthermore, the Ukrainian lost around 3 commandos. They sent in direction of Dibrovo, in the area of Dibrovo, through these forests. If we are talking about Bilogorovka, Bakhmut area, the Ukrainians made few attempts of small counter-offensive operation. First one in the vicinity of Bilogorovka, that located on the north. Another one was near Yakovlevka, Solidar, and another one was near Klishchevka, in the south of Bakhmut, and the most important, I believe, was near Shumy, and we will discuss this counter-offensive operation as well. All those counter-offensive operations from the Ukrainian side were repulsed by the Russians, and the Ukrainian lost around 40 soldiers and something around 5 armored vehicles. If we're talking about South Donetsk region, the same stories. The Ukrainians are trying to send commandos, trying to attack the Russians, trying to return the territories they lost during the previous Russian counter-offensive operation, and as a result of heavy clashes in the south of Donetsk, the Ukraine lost around 50 soldiers and something around 3 armored vehicles. We haven't received any updates from Pavlovka, from Mariinka, from Piesky, from Opytne, from Bakhmut these days. There were no updates. I believe that there are very heavy clashes, and the parties are trying to reduce each other as much as possible. I would like to discuss with you another topic, another words of Zaluzhny, the head of Ukrainian army. During this week, he gave a report, he was interviewed by the Western sources, and he was talking about the needs of Ukrainian army, and he told us that the Ukrainians need around 500 artillery systems if the Western countries want the Ukrainians to start like great offensive operation or something like this. For now, the Ukrainians don't have such resources to start any offensive operation. The only thing the Ukrainians are able to do is to defend and to be in the defense state and to just try to stop the Russians. And furthermore, during this week, the Zaluzhny, the head of the Ukrainian army, reported about the planning upcoming great offensive operation from the Russian side, and he told that for now they don't know exactly where the Russians are planning to attack. And another important thing he reported was that Ukrainians these days are working on one big plan. They're planning to do something important, something very big, something very great on the basis of resources they have. And to tell the truth, I try to analyze a lot, try to understand what the Ukrainians are able to do these days. Of course, we discussed a lot about, let's say, offensive operation in the north, but I must say, the thing is that Ukrainians don't have enough of artillery system and don't have enough of shells to start any offensive operation, and they don't have a lot of armored vehicles and tanks. So I'm not sure that Ukrainians are able to start some like big attack like they did near Kharkiv or Kherson district, because they just don't have enough of resources, and the most important, they don't have enough of artillery. The same situation about Zaporozhye. Yes, we talk a lot about offensive operation in direction of Tokmak, Melitopol, but if we're talking about this area, the situation is the same. The Ukrainians need to penetrate a lot of territory. They need to cross big distance, like as you can see, more than 100 kilometers, and all the road from the front line till Melitopol, all the time they will be attacking their flanks from the Russian side, and they will have a lot of losses. Some Western sources, some Western analytics reported that Western sources were saying that Zaluzhny made an analysis of this offensive operation, and he reported that to take control over Zaporozhye, over this area, the Ukrainians need around 200,000 soldiers. And he said that the approximate losses would be on the level of 30-40%. So to take control over Zaporozhye and to get Crimea, the Ukrainians need around 200,000 soldiers, and by the time they would be able to reach Crimea or to get Melitopol, Berdyansk, this bank of Azov Sea, they will lose around 80 70,000 soldiers. So as you can see, this is suicide operation without understanding of what benefits the Ukrainians will be able to achieve by this by possible attack. So I believe that till summer or till the late spring, I'm not sure that, or even till the September, we are not going to see like a big offensive operation from the Ukrainian side. But Zaluzhny told that they're planning to do something, and I tried to analyze the map, the current situation, and the most obvious thing that I understand the Ukrainians need to do is to stop the Ukrainians near Bakhmut. So the Russians attack here, and the necessary thing that Ukrainians need to do is to start a very smart counter-offensive operation near Bakhmut. They need to attack the Russians, and as we discussed, they need to force them to step back on this side of Bakhmut River, and if it's possible to push the Russians maybe on the line of Popasna or something like this. But how to do this? And that's why I would like to return to another report from the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation. And today they reported that Ukrainians made offensive operation from Shumy, this town, in direction of Gorlovka. This is Shumy and this is Gorlovka. We discussed this area many times. This is the Ukrainian position, and today, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians were trying to attack in this direction. As you can see, Gorlovka is the town under DPR control since 2014. Toretsk, New York agglomeration, is under Ukrainian control from the same time. So the line between these two towns is completely fortified. So if the Ukrainians decide to attack Gorlovka, they will face the same situation as the Russians faced these days in Peski, in Oputna, in Marinka. So this is a very fortified area, and it takes a lot of lives, a lot of souls, the Russian souls, the Ukrainian souls, in this battle for like even a square meter. We discussed this area for many times. I told you that one of possible direction of the Russian development in this area is in direction Druzhba and Dachina, these two towns, just maybe to try to encircle Toretsk agglomeration. So, but if we're talking about the Ukrainians, the possible attack that Ukrainians are able to do without any need to cross fields, to cross hundreds of kilometers and so on, because they just don't have resources to cross a big distance. The only thing the Ukrainians can do is that they can do the same thing as the Russians are doing since the beginning of special operation. They need to find a point, and they need to start attack this point like endless, concentrated everything they have, manpower, artillery, and so on. And the only possible and the only reasonable destination the Ukrainians can choose is to attack Gorlovka from Toretsk, New York agglomeration. If we take a look at this position map, we're gonna see that Ukrainians, by the flag of defense operation of Bakhmut, the Ukrainians managed to concentrate and accumulate a very powerful and a very big fist near Bakhmut. They're saying, and most of people think, that Ukrainians accumulated these forces just with one purpose, not to allow the Russians to penetrate and to take control of Bakhmut. And it's reasonable, of course, it's true, it's like possible. But from the other side, this region is too over-concentrated of forces, and who knows, maybe the Ukrainians, by the flag of defense operation of Bakhmut, decided to concentrate these forces with other purposes, and the reason and the possible purpose is to attack Gorlovka. The value of Gorlovka, it's like vital town for DPR, for the Russians, because through this town, as you can see according to this map, we see that this is the logistics center between DPR and Lugansk LPR, between these two republics, and all the railroads move through this town. So through this square. So this area, let's update this area with the cloud. So this is the one of the most important and vital area in this territory, and who controls, if the Ukrainians are able to establish control over this area, they will be able to, I believe, to split these territories in two parts, and after that, let's say, it will be a very big media victory. And just imagine yourself the Ukrainians somewhere in Gorlovka, on the territory that was under Russian control or DPR control since 2014, and they're showing a video how the people from this town using the Ukrainian flags are celebrating the victory of Ukraine army. It will be a very big shock and a very big loss for the Russians, at least media. So the question is that if the Ukrainians want to attack Gorlovka, they need to do this right now, because they will be forced to spend maybe weeks or months before they will be able to penetrate the first defense line of Gorlovka. And they will be forced to lose a lot of soldiers. They will have a lot of losses, but at least they don't need to cross fields. They can concentrate at some certain area and to push this area with the army they have. The same thing as the Russians do near Peskin and Oputne and Marinka as well. If the Ukrainians are able to penetrate this area, then in this case they will be able to, let's say they need to cross something like this. It should be suicide operation, of course, but anyway, it's worth it. And from this point, the Ukrainians will be able to move in direction of Debaltseve and try to establish some kind, like to take Debaltseve and another attack in direction of Donetsk, somewhere here, with one purpose, just to block these two towns, these two areas from the south and let's say from the north. In this case, Donetsk will be blocked from the south, and if the Ukrainians are able to penetrate bridgehead near Gorlovka, the Russian front line will be collapsed automatically, at least near Avdiivka. The Russian forces near Verkhnitaretsk, near this area, will be forced to step back, because from this moment they might appear in some kind of encirclement and cauldron, and the Russians will be forced to step back from this bridgehead in direction of Donetsk. And the same situation near Bakhmut. If the Ukrainians are able to penetrate Gorlovka and to get inside this town and then to turn in direction of Debaltseve, then in this case the Russians that located on the east part of Bakhmut the front line will be collapsed automatically, and the Russians will be forced to step back almost I believe even till the line of Seversky Donetsk river. So it's like this, of course the Ukrainians will have very big losses, but this operation might bring them a very big success. And the most important, they don't need to cross fields, the only thing they need is enough of artillery and enough of shells, just one purpose, to support attack, because this fortification is very powerful. And we know that Ukrainians uses 155mm shells, and the Russians, when they're trying to crack and penetrate Pesky and Oputne, are uses 200mm shells. So because it's trenches, you need to destroy them, and of course the bigger shell you have, the easy way, it will take less time to do this. For now, the Ukrainians don't have such possibilities to penetrate this area, so that's why the only possible solution for them is to use manpower as a meat, as a lot of waves of attacking in direction, with just one purpose, to force the Russians under big pressure of manpower to step back. Are the Ukrainians able to do this? They are able, and to tell the truth, they don't have any other option. They don't have enough of artillery, they don't have enough of tanks, they don't have enough of anything, and the only thing they have enough is manpower. And so that's why they need to use it. Yes, they will have, in this case, they will have a lot of losses, but I believe that taking Gorlovka will break any bad thoughts and will give the Ukrainians more spirit to continue developing their offensive operation in this direction. And to tell the truth, the Russians need to be careful with this area, to pay attention, because Wagners are completely involved in Bakhmut operation, and I'm not sure to tell the truth that anybody from Russians controls or this area. Yes, of course, there is some certain control, but I believe that there might be some kind of control, as we saw in Black Sea with the Moscow ship, the same control as we saw in many other places all over the Ukraine, when the Ukrainians were able to destroy some bridge, some ship, just on easy. So the same situation might be there. It's like it's some kind of Russian tradition to do this. So they need to be over concentrated and over careful with this area, because something is going to happen. And the Ukrainians, they need to start counter-offensive operation, but they need to do this smart. They don't have any other option. They have just one shot, and they need to use this shot smart. So if they don't, they will lose everything. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in Ukraine. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon. Have a good day. Bye bye.